Hello everyone, I'm Raleigh and welcome to the channel. So as you guys can see by the title of this video, today I want to talk about eyes, or rather the significance that I feel like the eye symbol has. Uh, we're talking specifically about Secrets of the Obscure and perhaps things that are yet to come. And I think that specifically the eye has, the eye as a concept or a symbol is a really cool connection between a couple of different factions that we have dealing with Secrets of the Obscure and Nyos and the current lore that's going on. So let's kind of go through and see, let's talk about the different factions that have put some kind of significance on using the eye as a symbol. So the first one that's obviously one of the big ones is the Cryptas, right? The Cryptas use the eye in a lot of different ways. The first thing that we ever got introduced to, even before Secrets of the Obscure came out, was in the first trailer where the first rift was shown, right? And we know that these rifts, they have the eye, right, in the rift. And that is kind of creepy in a lot of ways. There's kind of this eerie air about that because it always feels like someone's watching you, right? It always feels like someone from Nyos is just like, ooh, maybe Eparg or someone that's working under Eparg or whatever, right, is like watching you. And it's also when you close the eye. So I don't know how many people have ever noticed that, but if you ever like are going to close a rift again soon or something, just pay attention to when it actually closes, when you actually like use the Heart of the Obscure, because the eye doesn't just like disappear or like shut. It actually like closes, but not quite all the way, and it kind of does like a little last peek at the location at you, like it gets one last look at you before it closes, and it's kind of really creepy, right? I really think that ArenaNet did a really good job with like creating this like really eerie feeling to it. But does it have some kind of significance? Well, that's the first time that we see, or one of the more significant times that we see the eye symbol, or the eye being used to maybe symbolize something. I'm not sure. But what's the other thing? Well, we have when people get corrupted, for example, like the corruption of the Cryptas appears around their head. And this corruption around their head has these different eye symbols, or these eyes that pop up all over, and they move around and stuff. So that's another way that the Cryptas seem to have some kind of connection to eyes, because it would be something different if maybe the eyes of the person started glowing or whatever, but we actually have like different eyes that are popping up all over the head. So that's another one. I'm kind of listing all the things here as we're going through. The other one is Seras. So when you find Seras, he uses the Eye of Seras. He actually, like, there's this big orb that spawns above him, and there's like this effect that goes around or whatever, and it hurts you. And you can actually use that same with the Relic of Seras. You can actually summon the Eye of Seras, is what it's called. And that's, again, where we're kind of talking about, so why is the eye significant? Like, why is that such a weird centerpiece to the idea of Cryptas, the demons, right? Why is the eye so significant? It's really strange. Then we have, of course, one of the big ones is the meta boss in Amnitas, which is called, I want to say it's called Norus or Norus. I'm not sure. But it's that big, gross demon with the tentacles that spawn everywhere. And it has all these eyes on it, right? There are different names to those eyes. They're like the Eye of Rage and the Eye of Regret and the Eye of Malice and the Eye of gluttony. The Cryptas kind of have those names. They're named after those concepts or whatever, right? But each of these eyes has a name, and it's called the Eyes of the Abyss, Norus, the Eyes of the Abyss. So again, putting a significance towards the eyes, because that creature seems to be one of the top dogs when it comes to Cryptas. I was expecting when we went to Nyos to see other creatures like it, but we didn't see anything like that. Maybe once we get the extended map, maybe we'll see more of those. They kind of made it sound like there would be other creatures like it, but it seems to be a very unique creature, one of the bigger creatures of Nyos, so it seems to have a significant role. maybe that's what's watching us through the different rifts, right? Maybe it's like each rift has like an eye of Norse. It's like looking through it or something. Then we also have the new enemies called Spine Gazers that were introduced with the Nyos with the recent Through the Veil release. And those are, I feel like they're significant because they even have it in their name, right? They're called Spine Gazers. There's other cryptas that have obviously those same eyes, but I think this one kind of puts a specific focus on the eye as an idea, right? As a concept, right? It's made up of mostly eyes, and it's just this floating thing, and it's called a Spine Gazer. And you actually see it in Nyos, but it's not part of any of the different rift events or anything like that. It doesn't actually play a significant role, these creatures, the Spine Gazer variants of the cryptas. So it kind of leaves it like there's kind of a question of why introduce these new models if you're not going to use them, kind of thing. They do show up in the convergences though. They do appear there, and they're like bigger there as well. So but that's pretty much like as far as I can like think of on the top of my head of all the different things. Obviously I've taken some notes that I'm going to be looking at that the cryptas use. There's also one other thing that connects the cryptas to another faction, and it's not a direct way of the cryptas using eyes as a symbol, but is the units that are the mounted units that have the spear. They're called the Avatars of Malice, and then there's also the ones that are kind of walking around there, like the humanoid ones. They have those spears, and they have the same spears that Samurog has, and they have. And we'll talk about that weapon later on. We'll talk about the connection there in a minute. But that also has the eye symbol on it. So those are all the different ways that the cryptas kind of have this eye that they're using, right, as a symbol, as a concept. You know, what represents them, perhaps. Like, you know, if you think of the cryptas, the eyes are always like this huge part of the cryptas. So is there some significance to that? I don't know, but I'm kind of like, for now we're just kind of pointing out. I'll get to some theories that I have later, but so what's another faction that kind of has the eyes? Well, there is the Astra Ward. Now the Astra Ward doesn't have it as such a, like, the eye symbol isn't so dominant with the Astra Ward. We do see it a little bit. So the Astra Ward armor, for example, has an eye on the hat, on the shoulders there's eyes, on the chest piece there's an eye. So it does have that, where the Astra Ward has it directly on their armor, but I think that speaks more to how they are watchers in the sky, right? They're supposed to be watching over Tyria. Literally and metaphorically, they're watching from this, like, they're these watchers in the sky, right? They sit up in the sky and they watch, and they also look into, like, you know, invasions from the mist, and they try to, you know, fight those off as well. But I think that's what the eye symbol on the armor represents. It's them having this watchful eye over all of Tyria. I think that's what that represents. There's also the Eye of Isgarin that actually gets cast when you have the Relic of Isgarin, which isn't actually an eye symbol. It's actually like a sword with this like flaming effect behind it. So that's not necessarily, like, I feel like the Astra Ward perhaps uses the eye, but maybe in a different sense. Maybe I feel like it doesn't necessarily. Someone could argue, okay, that connects the cryptas to the Astra Ward, but I feel like the Astra Ward kind of just uses that. You know, Isgarin has that ability, the Eye of Isgarin, because he's the leader of the Watchers of Tyria, right? So I feel like that's maybe the connection there and the significance of the eye specifically for the Astra Ward. But what's another faction that uses the eye in a very significant way? Well, the Mursaat, of course. We've known the Mursaat for a long time now, going back to Guild Wars 1, and even in Guild Wars 1, the eye played a very significant role for the Mursaat back then. The most obvious case is the Eye of Janthier. We see it in Guild Wars 1. We actually use it in Guild Wars 1, and then it comes back in Guild Wars 2, and the last time we see it is when we defeat Lazarus with Livia, the other Wayfinder, and it dissolves. She says it doesn't teleport anywhere. She says it dissolves. It's gone because all its masters have been destroyed. So that's kind of really interesting because we don't know. We know about the tablets of Janthier and the teachings of Janthier, and we know of the Eye of Janthier, but we've never been to the Isles of Janthier, and we don't even know what or who Janthier is. Is it a person? Is it a demon? Is it perhaps someone that used to... Because the one connection that we have between the Kryptis and the Mersad is that's been established, at least officially, is that they both come from Nyos, the realm of dreams. Now, some might say, well, the Mersad probably have been eradicated by the demons, in Nyos, and they probably the Mersad don't exist there either anymore. But I like to think that maybe they're in a different corner of the world. When you look at Tyria, and you look at all the different, even the evil, the xenophobic creatures that are on Tyria, right? We exist along so many different species and so many different creatures and civilizations and stuff on Tyria alone. If you think about how huge the realm of Nyos could be, we don't know the extent of how huge that realm. We have only seen a small portion of it, and we're only going to see a small portion of it. We're not going to get a whole continent worth of Nyos to see. So you don't know, we don't know if the Mersad are maybe hiding in a corner somewhere in Nyos. Maybe they still exist there, or maybe they have some kind of peace treaty with the Kryptas where they say, well, we just want to exist on this one island over here, and this is our island, and that's all we want, or whatever, right? They were said to have been driven out by the Kryptas, but perhaps some are living still there. We don't know that yet, right? So, but that's the connection we already have. And then we talk about, Janthier. We don't know what or who Janthier is, and we have the Eye of Janthier. And then we also have the, what's the other thing that we have, the Mersad that deal with eyes? Well, we have the spears that Samurog uses. I just spoke of those earlier. The Avatars of Malice have those, right? And when you look at them, the little tips of them, they have, or actually they're pretty big tips, but they have an eye on them. And that is not the only time that we see those particular spear tips. We actually see those particular tips multiple times in the game. For one, I think one of the more significant cases is it's right on the front gate of the fortress in Ember Bay. When you go to Ember Bay and you go up all those stairs and you go up to the door, has that same tip of that spear with the same writing underneath it that has yet to be kind of deciphered. We don't know what it says, but that's the Mersad writing underneath, right in the center of it, right? And it has the eye on it. So again, kind of putting the emphasis on there's a connection between the Kryptas and the Mersad, because the Kryptas use those same weapons that the Mersad have, whether or not they stole it from them. But it seems to be maybe that there is some kind of significance to those weapons for the Mersad as well, because we didn't really know them as Mersad weapons. We've seen them in the Bastion of the Penitent, and we didn't know that was like a Mersad, or we knew the Mersad were there, but we also knew that it was originally an Astral Ward structure, right? And it kind of, there's some questions still there, like, that's another bastion, like, was there another wizard at some point in the court and stuff? But, today we're just talking about the eyes, right? And those are on all those spears. You have that eye symbol on there. The other time that we see those tips of those spears actually is in Mabon's chambers in the tower. You can go in there and it's on display and you can look right at it. And it's exactly that same tip of the spear, which has the eye on it. So there seems to be some significance with the eye when it comes to talking about the Mersad again, right? Once again, there's a lot of evidence that kind of talks about the eye being at the center somehow. Like, why was the Eye of Janthier so powerful and significant to the Mersad? What's the history? What's the origin to that particular power? And then I do want to point out a couple of things that still kind of deal with the eye and that could be perhaps a connection to things that are going on right now. So we still have the Eye of the North, right? We know that as the big structure. Oreen made her nest there, and it was one of the big outposts in the Eye of the North expansion for Guild Wars 1. So it's played a huge role for us as the player in both games, but we never knew, we don't know, we've never found out where, like, who erected the Eye of the North or where it came from, the origins of it, right? And it could perhaps be an Astral Ward structure, or it could be maybe an old Mersat structure, or maybe a Forgotten structure. We don't know, but the Eye of the North might be different than using the eye symbol, right? Because the Eye of the North seems to be just, it's a little different. It doesn't feel like it quite fits in with this whole concept of using the eye, like the Cryptas are doing and like the Mersat are doing. But I think the actual eye of the Eye of the North name talks about the scrying pool, which is pretty much an eye into past events. So I think maybe that doesn't have anything to. I wanted to mention it in this video, kind of talk about that a little bit. That could perhaps have some kind of connection or significance, but I feel like probably it does not. What the history, it's still really interesting to think about what the history of the Eye of the North could be, where it could have come from, who could have been the people that built it, so on and so forth. But I don't know if really the symbol of the eye actually has anything to do, if there's like any correlation with the actual Eye of the North. The other thing that we have is the map of the mists, right? And this is not the map of the All, this is the map of the mists that Lord Audran drew when he traveled through it, right? When you look at that map, and I'll show you guys on screen, when you look at that map, you'll see right in the middle is what kind of looks like a sun, right? But what does that kind of look like in the middle? It doesn't look like just like a round filled out object. It looks like an eye. So again, putting a little bit of significance to the symbol of an eye, and the connection here would be that we're talking about, you know, another realm in the mists, which we have to travel through, and we see portals, the rifts from Nyos have an eye in the have an eye in the center of it. So it's kind of, there's a little bit of a connection there, because, you know, that's the map of the mists, and we don't know, we kind of know what's at the center of the mists. We know the Hall of Heroes is there and stuff, and there's the area called the Rift or whatever, but we don't know what else could be hiding there, right? Because that could also have changed. It might not be the Hall of Heroes now. Maybe something took that over or whatever, right? We could have a whole story about the center of the mists or something. But I kind of wanted to point that, again, it was just another one of those things that had kind of an eye as a concept, right? Where it's just in the middle, but we have no information on it. We have no context as to why Lord Audran drew it like that, or whatever. So, but yeah, I wanted to start a discussion with you guys. I wanted to see what you guys think. So I have a couple of theories. Maybe it leads to like a common ancestor between the Cryptas and the Mersat, maybe wherever they got their power from, whatever this Janthier is, maybe was the one that gave them magic, right? Because we know that the magic on Tyria came from Abaddon. Abaddon was the one that gave the races magic, right? From the Bloodstones and yada yada. You know, and there was a whole idea of like Suwan and stuff like that, right? Originally, you know, but what would that be in other realms, right? Where does the magic come from in other realms? Does it just naturally happen, or is there some kind of creature that maybe at some point in time, you know, maybe a big eyeball or something, at some point in time, gave magic to the races of Nyos, right? We don't know that, but perhaps there's some kind of significance. You know, if I've missed anything, also, if I've missed anything with, you know, eyes and dealing with eyes and stuff like that, if there's any cool concepts that you guys can maybe draw a connection with. I would love to hear it. If you guys have your own theories, I would love to hear that as well. But yeah, I kind of just wanted to bring this out and see if, maybe you guys have some idea how the eye could be a connector between all these different things, and what we could see in the future. So, but that's going to be it for today, guys. I really appreciate you guys watching. If you guys haven't subscribed to the channel, I would really appreciate that as well. And if you guys want to become members, I would really appreciate that. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys in the next video. All right, bye guys.